Hey, Don.
Mhm.
I'll jump
Yeah.
right in. So, when you all think of your dad, what's the first thing that comes to mind, or what do you think of?
I could go first. It's his kindness and his hard work. Like I had a hard time thinking of like one thing I could come up with a list, but his hard work and his kindness and always making sure that we had everything we needed before him.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that that's part of it too that I thought of, I put, like, his laugh and his presence, and so it's just you knew when he was in the room, and it wasn't dominating, but it was just that he was so ever present with whoever he was with, and, he like Michelle said, so hardworking, and so it's hard to say put it into words, but I just think he's very present.
Mhm.
I would
Agreed.
say that he is the word that comes to mind is figure. And this is hard for me to talk about and listen to.
Mhm.
Just a figure, a generational figure. Like just how he was such a pillar in his immediate family, like for my grandma and his brothers and sisters. And, then obviously with us, just being always there. And then watching how he was with my boys and how they continue to live through, his legacy and just what he stood for and things that, that he would say and his gestures and just, if they're going through something that they think about what he would say or what he would do. So figure is the word that comes to mind for me.
Definitely. So, we were talking about how funny your dad was.
Mhm.
Everything he said was so funny. So, can each of you share however many memories you want, but memories of things about your dad that make you laugh or make you smile?
I would definitely say his one-liners,
Oh,
and just, like, things that he came up with. I don't know if it was because he was from the South and it's just kind of these, sayings, but one thing that I wrote down on here, Bridget and Michelle will know this, I wrote down cat eyes, because he was driving me from Hilton again, he woke up in the middle of the night, drove me, from Savannah or no, from Hilton Head to Savannah. I needed to go home for work, and from Hilton Head to Savannah felt like the middle of nowhere. So we're getting on the highway. He's like, "You have to have cat eyes to see out here." And I just like vomited. So this is like 3:30 in the morning and I'm just laughing. And so
Uh-huh.
anytime it's like that's how we kind of keep his memory alive. Anytime that we like it's dark or something, like we're like, you have to have cat eyes
Cat
to see. And
eyes.
this is just his way. And like he just came up with it out of nowhere, but it just always
Uh-huh.
makes me laugh.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he had the best one-liners. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but it was when we had to convince him that it wasn't Jennifer in an IKEA ad. He's like, well, who is it then? And so I think that was, I mean, just some of the things that he would say, and he would say it would be like what he would say would be funny, but there would be so much truth behind it.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it was, just saying that, someone's on someone else's pills or something. I mean, it's just something like he would. I think
or
he was
just the whole like
yeah,
just his my
his
dad
demeanor.
lived here for so long,
Mhm,
and you would never
mhm,
know because he was truly Talladega, Alabama, and it was like those
yeah.
southern things that we would like anytime you're talking, and Michelle and Jennifer, you heard me say this, recently. He was a nan nary all day long.
Mhm,
There ain't nan nary this, there ain't nan nary that. They don't know
mhm,
nan nary nothing. Nan nary, it was always a nan and nary. So it was
mhm,
always his southern mannerisms that made us love him even more. And that was something that we learned that obviously we didn't grow up with, being here in Cleveland, but we were able to take that, from him. And it was just his way of putting things that would have us on the ground. Even my mother would,
mhm,
would be the same.
mhm,
Like, where did he come up with that? So, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, that's the thing, and I think the thing that makes me smile is that he loved his yard work. And so, like, when I'm out there, I could hear him fussing at me for doing something too fast or trying
Mhm.
to, like, rush through something, but I it makes me smile when I do yard work as much as I mean, I have such an appreciation of how much he did all day long and going out there, and I learned about all that stuff from, like, watching him. And so not like he would let me do anything, when he was here, doing yard work, but he would always make sure that I knew kinda how to do certain things. And that's why I contribute. I love having my yard clean, and when I have it cleaned up, it makes me feel like, okay, he's present, and he tells me to go inside, get something to drink, sit down, and rest. So all of those things, I always feel that he's always present when I'm out there.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's how you honor him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
mine
Yeah.
is cleaning my oven because my oven is typically a hot mess because I cook so much. And um, when he was, after he retired, he would come over because at one of the houses I lived at, I did not have a self cleaning oven. So he would come over and clean it for me. And I would ask him, I would say, was it dirty? And then he would go, mm it was a little
Hmm.
rough. And I'm like, what? I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah.
So every time I clean my oven, I always think, would he approve of, how clean it is? And I would say, yes, he would, because you know that I did the best that I can. So yeah, his
That's so funny that we think
yeah.
of like cleaning things with him because I hate cleaning. And I like anytime I use my Swiffer, I always think that when he was like, "This thing ain't worth a nickel." That's what he would say. He's like, "It doesn't work." And just like
Uh-huh.
that funny stuff. And I'm like, I'm not getting down and mopping my hands and knees. I'm like, I'm not doing that. But just his little things. And,
Hmm.
it's something that we're talking about like cleaning, but I think that it comes down to like appreciating for what you have. And
Hmm.
like I say that to people and I don't realize I do it. I take really good care of the things that I have because I appreciate them. And I think my dad had such an appreciation based on where he came from. Um,
Hmm.
I just think of all that he went through in his life, and for him to be the person that he was is just incredible. And so I think that that's like where that comes from of just appreciating family and the things that you have.
Hmm.
Definitely. Can you each share something unique about your relationship with your dad?
Yeah, I could start. So I think my dad and I, we were very close. So I mentioned like the whole like yard work thing. So when my parents kind of downsized, and I had a yard, my dad loved his yard. He would come over at that time. I was just working from home on Fridays. And so he would come over every Friday. I would either go pick him up or my mom would drop him off, and he would come here and do yard work. And during that time when he was here, like if there was something that was bothering me or something I wanted his opinion about, we would sit in my garage and we would actually talk about that, or he would come in. I used to laugh because I'd be working from home, but would start talking to me, and I'd be on a call. That's another funny story. But it was, I think that's where, he really made me think about things and let me know that no matter what my decision was, that he was going to support kind of what I did. So it was that, I one story I got like a new roof and I was like, I don't know. And I was telling him about the people that came over and he said, I think I would go with this person. I said, you know what? I was feeling the exact same way. So I just feel like this, we had this, and still have, because I still feel his presence, this connection with things I could try to think through. I always talk with him. And so no matter him being here on earth, or in heaven, I feel like that's like the strong connection that I have with him.
Yeah. And I think for me and my dad, I was annoyingly independent for him.
Mm,
I moved to Chicago. I was there for 10 years. And then when I moved back home to be closer to my family, I live far away. I live in Cuyahoga Falls, so I live far away. But this will make me cry. But one of the things that, I remember him saying is, I'm glad that you can take care of yourself.
mm,
And like I know that he always looked out for me, but that was like one of the last things that he said to me. Um,
mm,
and so, I knew that he always had my back, even though I was doing things on my own. I never I
Mhm.
knew I was never really alone. I mean, with both my
Mhm.
dad and my family. And
Mhm.
so, I know it bugged him because I did whatever I wanted to, but
Mhm.
also that, he was proud of me.
Mhm.
Mine is I was also getting teary eyed while both of you were talking. Just me being the oldest, our relationship was always, you know, I felt unique in the fact that he reminded me often that even though when I would irritate his whole soul about something, when he didn't like what I
Mhm.
was, saying or the way that I did something, he would tell me, you just like May Rand, meaning my mom. And I would say
Mhm.
to him, I would say to him, well, that's a compliment, and just said how, you know, I always thought the fact that you would think of me in that regard, it really was a compliment because that's the person that you spent 50 years of your life with. And for him to tell me that, I always felt like, that was just so complimentary. And then another, I wouldn't be being honest if I wasn't, mentioning this, but after I had my boys, and my dad would call them his boys, that, I mean, and Angel, that giving your parents grandchildren is one of the greatest things you could ever do on this earth because it's like their love for you and their love for everything is so renewed.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just feel so strongly about that because it's true. And just to see their joy, excuse me, have the boys around, it was just truly, you just saw this joy renewed and this love renewed for them, for him and my mom.
Mhm.
I'll bet.
Mhm.
How did your dynamic change after your dad's passing? I know he was just present all the time. I remember him being
Mhm.
present every time I was over. So, how did your dynamic change as a family?
I would say if it's even possible, I feel like we got even closer. Um, I would say that, it definitely was hard when we got together and he wasn't at the table or he wasn't here. And I think that is, it is, I feel like my nephews, and I'll start crying, Grant and Brandon, like Bridget said, like looked up to my dad and lived by like how he taught us, but they really stepped in and made sure that we were all okay. Um, both of my nephews are just angels, and Grant um was there with me in the hospital when my dad passed, and Brandon, and God, I love Brandon. Like he's the one. He cares. His heart is enormous, and he just is the kind of silent here, and he's here, and that he cares. So that was my thing with as far as our dynamic, and still it still feels like a void, but my nephews just really. I wouldn't say made me really proud, but it was just like they just made sure we were all okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree that it like,
Uh,
to even obviously we're an emotional family.
yeah.
But like I think that also, we did get closer and for me it helped me to like prioritize my relationship with my family that, there was so much other noise around me with all that was going on. Um and that really just that everything else will be there, but family won't. And also being there for my mom. I think that Bridget and
Mhm.
Michelle especially, and Brandon and Grant and my brother-in-law Don, like I think that we really rallied around my mom because we can't imagine what it would be like to lose somebody that you were with for 50 years and willingly. Yeah, I think it brought out the best in all of us. And, I hate to see when families grow apart. when there's been, a loss and for a lot of reasons, but I think that it helped us, to be our best selves because it's something that would make my dad proud too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like my friends got me a sign saying y'all take care of each other, and I have it hanging in my house, and they got that for me for my birthday, and I it's that's what we do. There's no question. Um, it's just there. There's never a second like it's a non-negotiable that we
Mhm.
that we take care of each other.
Just to piggyback off what Michelle just said, is that we don't even have to bring it up. It's like, if someone needs something or even just to check in or, just being there and being present, for each other, we don't even have to ask. And that is what my
Mhm.
dad did for all of us. And, that's just how we were raised. And to see that passed on, to Brandon and Grant and know that they have that instilled in them too. It's a really cool thing to see because I see him and them. And that's why. And they don't take for granted either, even as young as they are. I mean, they're young, but not like, teens. They're adults, younger than all of us, but they know that family is important. And like Michelle said, you know, rallying around each other is what gets you through and being strong. And I find strength in them every day, especially when we lost my dad. If it wasn't, for all of us being, together and rallying around each other and Michelle and Brandon and Grant doing that because I'm their mom, especially around me, I wouldn't have made it. There's no way.
Through your grieving process, if you're having a sad moment, do you call one another? Or sometimes do you have moments to yourselves? Because I know sometimes when you grieve, you feel like it's impacting you in a different way than it is everyone else. So how are you all handling that?
Um, I would say that I really like that question 'cause I feel like that I do grieve individually. I think that it is to calm myself. I know it's like it is like quiet and like kind of silence. Not that I wouldn't want to share, but I also feel like that you don't know when it's going to hit you, and it's like okay, I do just tend to just kind of sit down and take a breath or just cry.
Mhm.
And just know that. And then what helps too is like we'll talk about my dad when we are together or bring up something. And I think that's part of the grieving process too, is going to be able to say, being able to feel their presence, but then talk about that, knowing that they're not here. So that would say just for me personally, it is something that I feel like that it is, I could, text you, I'm having a hard day, but for like a lot of times, more often than not, I do grieve individually.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way in that, like, two of the words that I wrote down was that I retreat and process.
Mm,
That sometimes I have to think about it and be able to process my feelings. And I think that the way that we grieve together is by sharing things about my dad. So it's,
mhm,
he would like fuss at us for crying. But he,
mhm,
would want us to remember the good times with him and the things that we, love about him. And so I think that that's the way that we show grief together. Um, and, supporting one another, when times do get difficult. But yeah, I'm more of a, I talk about him to other people. Like I talk about him
Mhm.
to
mhm.
my patients and my friends. And that's, how I keep his memory alive. But I think that that's part of grief too, because grief doesn't always have to be sad.
Right.
Mhm. Yep.
Bridget, did you want to add anything?
Um, yeah, I think I'm the opposite, but only because um,
Mm,
my life is different than Michelle's and Jennifer's. I've always had people in my house and, like just around me. I have kids. So I am
mhm,
I'm sad, I'm crying. I need to tell Don of course. And then, the boys, especially now that they're older and they can understand more, I
Mhm.
feel like that's the kind of griever, for lack of a better term, that I am. That I'm gonna cry, but I need to tell somebody. I need to tell you why I'm sad.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if you can make me feel better, it's
Mhm.
great. But if you could just be there to listen to me, that's great too. You know. So
Mhm.
and finally allowing myself some time to grieve, because for a minute I felt like, okay, I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest sister. I'm the oldest daughter. I got to make sure everybody else is good. And then stopping, pausing to make sure that I'm good. That's something that I had to learn how to do, that I still have to learn how to do, because it doesn't come easy.
Hmm. With Father's Day coming up, do you all plan anything special to honor your dad? Is it something where you start to get sad, or does it, make you feel good about being able to honor him?
I think that he always wants us to be together, and that's something that we make a point of doing. Um, I always call Don the OG. I'm like, and
Mhm.
by, being there, and celebrating Don, because he's been there for a long
Yeah.
time in our
Yeah.
family,
Mhm.
that's part of, what's important too. And, just being together, celebrating another father figure in our family is important. And that's what my
Mhm.
dad would want.
Mhm. Yeah, we definitely have his favorite foods. That's what we often do. He always liked his sweets, so I'll try to make a dessert, but kind of echoing what Jennifer said. Being able to celebrate Don, and being able to celebrate, that together as a family is exactly what my dad would want. So, and I keep on mentioning yard work. I'll do some piece of like yard work that day.
Mhm.
I always have to honor him in that way, even if it's 95 degrees outside. I'll still
Right.
go out there.
Yeah. The
Mhm.
favorite foods thing is usually a thing. And my mom will make my dad's favorite thing was a sweet potato pie. And my mom didn't know how to make a sweet potato pie until she met my dad. So that's one of the things we always
Mhm.
make sure that we had. And he always told me that I made the best greens. So we have to have greens, even if it's 95 degrees on
Mhm.
Father's Day, because that's some of his favorite stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I could talk about your dad all day. Is there anything else you want to share that I haven't asked before I ask you my last question?
I think that, I mean, I shared this with my sisters too, that late last year, I went to Alabama to do an ultra marathon. But I had the chance to see my aunt and uncle, my dad's sister. And like that trip brought me so much peace. Being with, like, talking to my aunt Brenda is like talking
Mhm.
to my dad.
Mhm.
And I was in Talladega. That's where my dad is from. And, I just think that any way that you can connect with a parent or a child or a spouse, anyone that's passed away or their family, I think is just so special.
Mhm.
Um, like I'm trying to get my mom to go down there. And
Hmm.
Mhm.
it just I think just having that family connection and especially being somewhere where he was from was just so special and so important. And I hope Michelle and Bridget and my whole
Mhm.
family can do that because it 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 brought some kind of not closure, but just a different
Hmm.
part of grief that I hadn't experienced, and it's, 5 years later, gonna be 5 years later.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, he would have fussed
Wow.
at me because he doesn't like me running in the middle of nowhere, but I'm like
Mhm.
I just felt his
Mhm.
presence, though, protecting me. He would always tell me, "Watch out for them bears." There's no bears there.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
yeah, so I hope that that's something that we can do as a family for sure.
Well, the channel is called Life After the Goodbye. So that is always my last question. So it's, what has life been like after the goodbye, or what would you like it to be like after the goodbye? So do any of you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say that it has been it's been different. I was trying to come up with a better word, but I mean, it will never be the same. I think one of the things that it is, I got rid of that expectation because I was like, how, what am I going to feel like? And I'm like, it's just, it is a different way of
Mhm.
living. It's a different chapter. Um, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think of my dad multiple times per day. And wish that he was here. Like if there's, I'm like, I just want to hear his voice. I want to, be with him. Life after the goodbye is just learning how to adapt to things. Like there's going to be days that you are going to grieve and you're just going to feel like absolute garbage. And there's days you can be like, you know what? I feel his presence all the time. And today I feel a little bit stronger. And so that's why I feel like life after the goodbye, there was a long time that I felt like, right after his passing, that I could have went up to the hospital and he was going to be there. And it was just a really odd feeling, but even now, like I said, being in my yard, I'll have to see like certain signs. I'm one that believes in that. So I would just say life just is just very different. It's how Jennifer had mentioned the prioritization of things. It just taught me to reprioritize everything. Like what is going to be most important? What am I going to really stress out about versus like, hey, this is really that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think that similar to Michelle, that it, has helped me to reflect on like who I am as a person and the qualities that I want to have that my dad had. And
Mm-hmm.
so it makes me much more aware of how I move throughout the world and making him proud. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Also similar to Michelle, like I believe I don't feel I feel his physical absence, but I feel like he's present in my life so much.
Mm-hmm.
Kinda like a guardian angel. I have things of his around my house, and, that's
Mm-hmm.
helped me because I think that one of the things that people are afraid of is that, if I don't stop grieving, I'm gonna forget the person, but, like, I think that that's, like, a comfort for me to have his things around the house and see things,
Mm-hmm.
and, so that's how it's changed, just again, like, kinda honoring him through who I am, but that definitely changed when he passed away.
I think that the um being more intentional about what I do, and making sure that when I'm doing things that it's not, and then I think all of us experience this at many points in our lives, especially in today's world, is just being so present with what it is that we're doing and not let the distractions take away from time that you will never get back. And, just making sure that, I say things about many things that I do. And little did I know that even later in life, later being in that Jennifer's not in her 50s yet, but that we're all in our 50s, that you still have, you know, things that happen to you that I just always say, I hope that I'm making you proud. And
Mm-hmm.
and just knowing that I'm sure there's things that I know that he's proud of, and being able to say, or, if I don't know what to do about something, oh, daddy, please show me what to do. And, just
Mhm.
speaking to
Mm-hmm.
him. And life is so very different. And I never imagined it because when we're younger, we don't think what
Yeah.
life is going to be without that person that has always been there for you. And it's so very different,
Mhm,
especially when you still have a parent that is there that needs you just as much, if not more now, because they don't, and we will never take the place of my dad in my mom's life. And that's something that we had to, I think I could speak for my sisters, that we had to take a grasp on and understand because my mom has said, I am so blessed. Why am I so sad? We can't fill that void because that's a different kind of love that you
Mhm.
have for,
mhm,
your spouse and, you know, the dad of your, children. We can't fill that void. So just all of those things and just, our roles are a little bit different in the life of my mom and even in the life of, just with each other. just that whether we know it or not, that we just move differently because my dad isn't here. But and it's not always a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just different.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
Well, thank you all for sharing and sharing your parents with me because
Mhm.
I adored your dad and, of course, your mom, your entire family. I really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you, Angel, for having us.
Thanks for letting
Yeah,
us
thank you for
share about
having
my
us.
dad.
Of
Yeah, and
course.
providing the space.
Mhm.
This is a
You
great
have to
space.
find
Keep it
that
up.
picture, that IKEA picture.
Yes. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'll
God.
find
I
it.
wish.
It's on Facebook somewhere. I'll
Oh,
have
it
to look.
is.